Good morning. I'm Virginia Ann Franklin Waters, and I'm the Executive Director of the Bullitt County Historical Society. Today, we are interviewing Rodney Harville and his lovely wife, Nadyne, Nadyne, Brannon Harville. They are very active community members and have kept the Historical Society going for 51 years. To begin with, we're going to start with talking to Nadyne about some things in her life. Tell me, where were you born in Bullitt County, and in what year, and where did you go to school in the county?
Okay. I was born on the west side community of Bullitt County in January 4th, 1941. And I was born in a three-room tenant house on the Winsky place in the west side community. And I went to, we didn't live there too long, but anyway, I went to school. My first 4 years, I went to Warner Elementary School. And after that year, some of the elementary schools in Bullitt County were being consolidated, and we had to choose another school because Warner was one of them. And Mom and Daddy chose the laboratory school at Georgia Southern at that time. And I started there in the 5th grade and continued until I graduated in 1951 from what was then Marvin Pittman School.
So when you started there, Nadyne, it wasn't named for Marvin Pittman, was it?
No, it was just the lab.
It was the lab school for the teachers' college.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Can you remember any of your teachers from that time?
I remember lots of them.
Well, name one or two. Let's help get the whole roster. Who were one or two?
Okay, Dr. Alvin McClendon, Dr. Betty Lane.
Of course.
Yes. Miss Rory Wood.
Yes.
Mr. Ferris, Mr. Bill Ferris, he was my 5th grade teacher. And I've often said, this isn't what you asked, but I've often said that I didn't know how privileged I was to have attended school at the laboratory school. It was wonderful because we were able to join in with the college students, with our students, teachers.
You sure did. You have the cream of the crop of Bullitt County because they were all trained right there at the college. Let me ask you this, Nadyne. Did you ever work?
Yes, I did. First of all, I was a farm girl, and I was a.
Bill, you worked a whole lot.
Yes, we worked a lot. In fact, I had to do things probably that girls didn't need to be doing, but I was Daddy's first, and there was things that needed to be done, and I did it. It did.
What did you do that girls didn't need to be doing?
Probably fill up fertilizer buckets and put them in the what was it, a distributor, and that kind of thing. Just lots of things like that. And of course, I pick cotton. We all did. Everybody did. Pick cotton and put in tobacco and took them out by the barn. Did whatever was to be done.
Tell me, what was your mom and daddy's name?
Okay, my dad was Floyd, and my mom was Mary Maud Mixon Brannon.
She was a Mixon.
Yes.
Yes. And tell me, how many siblings did you have, and who are they?
Okay, my first one was Elizabeth Brannon Anderson, deceased now. And then my brother, Floyd Wendell Brannon, and then my baby brother, which came along 15 years after Wendell, Philip Michael Brannon.
Right. And those Brannons have done wonderful things in Bullitt County, I will add. Tell us how you learned to cook, probably from your mama, and what are some of your favorite things, and what do they expect at the Primitive Baptist Church for Nadyne to walk in with?
Well, for lots and lots of years, I have made my strawberry salad, and they would always go looking for my strawberry salad. I still make it occasionally for special things, but not every time. And
Is that the one with pretzels?
yes,
Oh, I love that. Yes, it is. And what about cakes?
um, I like to make a pound cake.
Thought so.
Yes, I enjoy making it. What I make is a cold oven pound cake. It's always good.
Yes, I use a cold oven too. Do you use cream cheese, sour cream, or whole milk?
Uh, Oatmeal.
No, cream cheese or sour cream. What's in your pound cake?
Uh, Cream cheese.
Cream cheese.
Well, I think we've been blessed to grow up in Boulder County. Uh, it's just a wonderful place to live. Oh my goodness, it's just wonderful. I, I can remember getting the Bullet Times, and we would read about everybody. I mean, they had the community news, and we read about everybody. It was interesting.
Yes, it was. You know, you talk about the Bullet Times. One thing that I enjoy when I was little was Emma Martindale and her talking about things. And what I always loved to read about, and I'm fascinated with today, were the clubs, the women's clubs around the county and how active they were and the things they did, from canning produce to being there when someone was sick.
When I was at Warner School, they had a canning plant, and the ladies and the men came, and they canned tomatoes and pickles, and it was a great.
Yes. Nadine, I'm 67, and I vividly remember going to the canning plant in Metter, Georgia, that was at the high school with my grandparents, and they put up everything: peas, cream corn, tomatoes.
Right.
And that's something that this generation doesn't know what we're talking about.
That's right.
Tomatoes come in a can. They don't even know how they grow. Some of them don't.
That's exactly.
I miss, I love history and I love old things. So
They made ketchup. That was one of the things. And that scent we get on it, you could not get it off for a while. It just had to wear off. It
was it because of the vinegar in it?
I'm assuming that's what.
Yeah, it just kind of clung to you. Nadine, when you were born and when you were little, a little girl living in the county, you said you were born in, I think, the Winsky house.
Yes.
Yes. That was a tenant house. Did it have running water or did y'all have a well?
Of course, we did not have running water. It was pretty ancient back then. But we made out. It was fine. This and that.
Who was in charge of going to the pump and pumping the water to bring in the house?
It wasn't a pump. We draw the water out of a well.
Out of a well.
Right. And I think Mama and Daddy did it.
Yes.
We were not to touch it.
I gotcha. So that was not child's play.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Also, Nadine, the country sometimes did not have electricity. You know, those things were late to come to country folk, as was rural-free delivery. And both electricity and rural-free delivery changed the South. Can you speak to that?
We had moved, Daddy had bought a little farm through a government loan. It was wonderful. And we had moved to a area where when you came to our house, you had to turn around and go back because there was no further road. And ours was the last house in the community, I'm sure, to get electricity. Oh my goodness. And that was a wonderful thing when we finally did get electricity.
What do you remember the most? Turning on the light or what? What was the most exciting thing when they hooked up the Brandon house to electricity?
Oh my goodness. We could get a hot water heater. That was wonderful. We didn't have to heat water and all that kind of thing. And yeah, it was just wonderful just to be able to have so many things that we were not able to have before that. Have a radio. It was just wonderful.
Yes.
It was so exciting for us if the mail came. We didn't get a lot of different things. We got Sears Roebuck catalog and the Market Bulletin.
Yes. Yes. And we still get that market bulletin. Yes.
And the Market and eventually we got the Progressive Farmer.
Yes.
And we looked at everything. Listen, I looked at anything. I might have been in anything, but it was still wonderful.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Rodney, where exactly were you born in Bullock County and in what year? And was it part of all that land out on Harville Road that's next to Sam Harville's house? Or tell us about that.
I was born in a tenant house, and the tenant house was actually owned by my granddaddy. He had bought the property. I was born in 1935, and a strange thing was that I weighed 11 pounds and 4 ounces.
My Lord in heaven, bless your mother.
My mother once said one time that, I could have had twins. But then after you got older, the world couldn't stand for another Rodney.
Well, I don't agree with your mother on that, but 11-time baby is unheard of.
It was in the Denmark area,
Gotcha.
and Granddaddy bought another piece of property that the man owned it was Winfield Lee.
Okay.
And we moved when I was 4 years old to the Neville's community, and there we stayed for the rest of my life, except moved to the Harville house at one time.
Tell me about the Harville house. Who built that? Your granddaddy or your great granddaddy?
My granddaddy built it.
Tell us about your granddaddy.
Well, my granddaddy was Keeper Henry Harville, and where he got Keeper, we could never figure out. And of course, my father was named Slidell, and we could never figure out where Slidell went. The only thing we could find with my daddy was there was a General Slidell in the Civil War. So I don't know. But I lived in Neville's for 12 years and graduated from Neville's High School.
Right.
Neville's,
And you were a basketball star at Neville's.
I played basketball.
You were a star. Come on, tell the truth.
Well, no, I started when I was a pretty good sized fellow when you start off with 11 pounds and 4 ounces. I wore my daddy's shoes when I was in the 7th grade, and in the 10th grade I made the varsity basketball team, and the basketball team went to the state tournament in 1949, and they lost in the second round. They went back in 1950, and I was on the team with my brother. We went to the semifinals and lost in the championship game. Then back in 51, and we went to the semifinals and was eliminated again. So I was also on a baseball team, and I also was in track. I threw the shot put, and there.
You were very athletic, but I want to get back to basketball. You played on the basketball team, and y'all would play a team from Brooklyn. And on that team at Brooklyn, there were the Proctor brothers, and they were twins. Stilson. I'm sorry, Critters were from a little further south in the county. They were from Stilson. And the funniest story Rodney's fixing to tell you about those Proctor boys on the Stilson basketball team.
Well, it was just this. It was very difficult. Both of them were guards, and my brother had to guard one of them, and occasionally he would get the wrong man. And what happened was, in those years, 49 through 51, we, in the district tournament, we eliminated all the schools. We hit the championship or go to state. And Brother Emerson had his retirement yesterday after 67 years of preaching, but they, in 52, after we had lost in 51, 52, Stilson won the district. Girls and boys went to state and won girls and boys state championships.
That's pretty good for Bullock County, even if there wasn't levels. Now, we haven't said who these proctors were. They were identical twins, and their first names were
Emerson and Emery. These, and they were there, and another good basketball player that came from there was Avad Edenfield, and he played basketball, and he made the comment one time. We went to I took a group of people to Washington under the National Guard playing, and he was there. I don't know why he was there, and he come and sat on the table and said, "I want to tell you all a story about this man here," pointed to me. He said, "That man is the only man I ever threw out at second base playing baseball." He said he was either slow or I was fast. I don't know.
Who Rodney is referring to is Avad Edenfield from the Stilson area, who we lost about 4 years ago, and he was a federal judge.
Yeah.
So he was a very important figure from Statesboro. Rodney, tell me about, where was your very first job?
Well, my very first job for paying was the backer figure. And I picked the backer, I don't know, it was probably 45 cents an hour or whatever it is. I picked the backer during the summer. Then when I got to into the middle age of 15 and 16, and that area, my bro and I worked at the tobacco warehouse at night, and during the money that we made during the tobacco season and picking it, that money was not ours. It went to buy my clothes for school.
Certainly. And it did for most people. I know my husband worked at the tobacco warehouse to buy school clothes. Which tobacco warehouse did you work in?
I worked at the Brandon.
At the Brandon. On College Street?
On College
On
Street.
College Street. That's where Bill worked.
Of course, we would visit the people on Cobb and Foxhall also. It was right next door to it.
Well, and I'm so glad you mentioned Foxhall, because today we have an event center in downtown Statesboro called the Foxhall. And I guarantee you that most people in town don't know that that was named for the tobacco warehouse that used to be in that vicinity. Yeah, that whole area was kind of covered up with tobacco warehouses, because during that time, Statesville was one of the leading warehouse centers. Can you talk a little bit about the tobacco industry during that
Yeah,
time?
it was, what would happen there is a group of people would come down, the tobacco buyers from different brands would come down, and they would most likely fill up the Jekyll Hotel at the time. And then they would come in. The tobacco was actually picked and put in a barn with heat, and they would dry it out until the stems were crackly, and it was fine. And then it was put on a tobacco sheet and tied up and thrown in a truck, brought to the warehouse. And I can remember at Brandon's warehouse where it was located, and where it was located, the trucks would be back down almost to West Main Street.
Yep.
To get in and get unloaded. And what you did was you had a buggy and a basket. And that basket was put on the buggy. You roll your buggy up to the back of the 2 men in the truck would drop the packer in that bit rotation and put it in the rows. Now, then the tobacco bin, when it was having the sales, they would be an auctioneer. It was auction each tobacco off, and then it was bought, and the railroad would park right side of the Brandon warehouse. That tobacco bin was packed on there and rolled in there and put in there, and it made its way to North Carolina, wherever that brand lost and went that way. So it was an interesting operation, and we worked 2 years at night there.
You were in the telephone industry the majority of your adult life.
Yes, what?
And from really the beginnings of telephone and Statesboro. So tell us,
No.
though, I think that you started in another state out west.
No, my daddy was a farmer and a butcher. He learned to cut meat, him and Otis Waters, at Bonnie Marsh in Jersey.
Yes. Right here on West Main.
And another thing there is that Bonnie Marsh's place on West Main was not far from Inman Street.
No.
And that's where mine also came from, and they got I'm just putting that together, but that's what happened.
Certainly.
Yeah. But anyway, my daddy was cutting meat, and this man that owned a freezer locker asked me if I wanted a job. And I told him no, that I thought that I would go back to school. And my daddy said, son, I'm going to give you some advice. You're going to go back up there and flunk out. You better take that job. And I did. I went to Greensboro, Georgia, and REA program was underway, and the Union Point Telephone Company was the REA program where we go and rebuilt it. Open wire circuits. Now, open wire circuit means a wire, there's no installation on it.
Wow.
And you got installators and with cross arms and all that stuff. And I learned to be a linesman.
In Greensboro, Georgia.
Greensboro, Georgia.
Okay. Never leave that, Rodney. Fascinating.
I dug my first, we had 8-foot hole diggers. Handles was 8 foot. And when you start off in the telephone business, you start off digging holes. I dug my first hole in White Plains, Georgia. And from there, the men we stayed in Greensboro at the Boswell House, a rooming house, and the men would go out and party at night, and I would stand around, and Miss Clifton had a desk, and I studied the prints, and I got to studying the prints, and I would come by and I'd tell Mr. Clifton, they didn't put the right thing on this pole. How'd you know that? I said, I've been studying the thing. So then I made foreman of the hole digging crew, and moved on up to there's a certified linesman.
Wow.
That lasted from the summer and lasted to October and April when I come back home, and started back working with the warehouse again. And there was a man that was working there. His name was Beasley. And he said, Darn, didn't you go to telephone business? I said, well, I worked with the telephone. He said, well, my brother works over there. His name is Burdette Beasley. He said, go talk to Mr. Matthews. He owns a company. So I went and talked to Mr. Matthews, and of course, he hired me, and know the rest of the story. I wound up as vice president of operations at Statesboro Telephone Company.
For how long, Rodney?
I started in 55, and I retired actually in 94. But there was 2 projects that I was working on with fiber optics, and they asked me to come back and work with those 2 projects. And I told them going back, I said, I don't want anybody to mess with me. I'm going to my office. I don't want no bunch of troubles or nothing else. I'm going to work on these 2 projects. So I worked on those 2 projects, and I retired again in April of 95. And it was a long hole, but it started digging holes and wound up as a vice president.
Vice President, yes. And one that I know that the Matthews family that are friends think the world of you. So you developed not only a fine career, but lifetime friends, Rodney, with the Statesboro Telephone Company. During that time, Rodney, you were also very involved with the National Guard.
Well, what happened was when you're a senior in high school, and Gordon Hendricks was the ag teacher at Neville's, and he was a member of the National Guard. He was in World War II, but he got back in and was there, and he brought some of the recruiters down to Neville's and said, if you don't go in the National Guard, you'll be drafted. Well, I had my heart set on a high school basketball coach. That's what I wanted to be, and that didn't work out, uh, but I joined there, and it went through several changes. I would
So you joined actually in
High
high
school,
school.
right.
Okay.
in high school, and then while I was in college, there was a man that was a very dear friend of mine. He was Paul Moore. He would work with the forestry company. He would come get me in the dormitory and go to drill. And so I stayed in the National Guard while I went to school to George Chiefs College. And I remained in there and went through several changes. Started off in anti-aircraft artillery, then went to combat engineers, then went to mechanized infantry, and wound up as field artillery. So in those years,
How many years does that cover,
I
Rod?
had over 38 years.
38 years.
38 years, 3 months, and 14 days. And I retired on the 14th day of September, and that's our wedding anniversary.
How about that?
And before I retired, the federal government enacted a law called the USERA law with it, which is a protection of National Guard and Reserve to get their job back when they come back from demobilization.
Gotcha.
It's called ESGR, and it's the employee support for Guard and Reserve. I started that volunteer work immediately after I retired. I did that for 22 more years,
22 years.
and totally 22 years and 38 to 60 years.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Any way you count it.
Yeah, and during the ESGR program, there's 5 of us from Savannah. Most of them from Savannah. From 2013 to 2003 to 2013, 10 years, we mobilized 52,000 soldiers in Fort Stewart, and we briefed them all, or either briefed them coming back from demobilization.
And where were they being mobilized to?
It's different places.
Different places.
Iraq,
Right.
and all the places they were there.
Wherever they were needed at that time.
And my work there as a volunteer for the Department of Defense, I was awarded that award for the outstanding volunteer for a year.
Wow.
And
That's beautiful, that eagle.
also, I do accumulate hours of volunteer hours, and when you go over 250 hours, you're awarded 2 presidential awards. One from President Obama and one from President Bush, presidential volunteer awards.
How wonderful. So, how did you meet? And Rodney, I'm going to defer to you after we find out how you met to tell us about that first date.
Nadyne worked at Rockwell, and Rockwell had old cord stuff. When they come here, they had a cordage system, old type of PBX plugs and all that stuff. And the States Petroleum Company had a switcher. We had a new switch system in the telephone system. And that was my responsibility to install it, and then they could dial up stations, and then under Rockwell you could dial it for finance or somewhere. It was the dial system within there, and I was supposed to keep it, keep up with the thing. And I had seen Nadyne in there, but I didn't know who she was, and it didn't make much difference. I didn't pay much attention to it at all. But Chris there, the Lotes was from Neville's. She married,
James Ron.
yes, Hush was, but they weren't married at the time. They were dating. And they decided that they would put me up with Nadyne. And we thought we had it planned, but Nadyne was with her family, and they were gone when we went out to her house to get it. Now, this is out in the country, and there ain't no grass in the front of the house. It's just dirt where you have to sweep it. And but I looked on the porch there, and there stood a backer stick. Now, a backer stick is about 6 foot. It's just a stick. That's what the backer is strung on. So I get the backer stick, and I wrote in the sand, "We'll be back in an hour. Be ready." Well, when I got back, she was ready. We went to the Knick-Knack and had dinner together, and that was the start.
Okay, Nadyne, where were ye?
Well, I don't know what she was. She was with her friend and he gone somewhere.
We had, if it was Sunday afternoon, we had gone somewhere to visit, probably.
Yeah, going to ride, going to visit, and you got back and you saw the scribbling in the dirt. And what'd you think?
I didn't know what to think. Lord have mercy. But anyway,
So did you go put on some lipstick?
I actually don't remember what I did, but as he said, I was ready. I didn't know. I hated to disappoint Crystal and James Ronald since they had to go to all that trouble. They just continued to insist that we must date. And so,
Thank heavens they did.
do what?
Thank heavens they insisted. Yes.
Amen. But we were ready and we enjoyed it. We went to the Knick-Knack and had supper. That thing just brought me back home. I can't remember.
So how long had y'all been married?
It was 63 years, September the 14th. Yeah.
I heard people that if I didn't have a car, they didn't have a car. I told her I married her first car.
So you married
He didn't even have a car.
well,
But it's
you
like-
know, it was
One thing too,
on the same.
when we decided that we would get married, was living with on the weekend. I was working at a telephone company, but on the weekend I'd go home, and my daddy and I had bought a cow, and was going to feed it out and have beef and all. And we paid half of it, and I was paid half for it, and he was feeding it. Well, when I asked Nadyne to marry me, and I didn't have money to buy a ring with, and I told Daddy I wanted would he give me my money back, and then he could have a child. So I ordered her a ring, and on April the 17th, she was driving, and she was going back to her house. I told her to stop on Burke Harbor Road, and I gave her the ring. You know the rest of the story, and it's platinum and not silver.
Well, how nice.
And
That's as good as you can get, right? Yes, yes. And so did you get out of the car or just stop the car?
we just stopped the car.
And you said, will you marry me?
You know,
And what did she say? Oh, I'd love to.
she didn't hesitate.
She didn't hesitate. Well, let me ask you this. Did you give her a little?
Yeah.
Okay, good, good. And I've heard y'all got married at Satsboro Primitive Baptist Church. No? Or Middle Ground Primitive Baptist Church.
We were.
Middle ground.
Middle Ground.
And
And tell me about how the church looked and all that kind of stuff.
we had both of us had no money to do something right around, but Nadyne was a good make to do things. And so she just got some small saplings and the greenery, and it was being green as it was. And my thing that I can remember mostly, my daddy never went to church. He was not raised to go to church. My granddaddy didn't go to church. That's not to say that there wasn't good people and good Christians that just didn't go to church.
Correct.
But I asked him to be my best man, and he did. So he went to church one time, I know.
Yes.
But
And a gentleman that Rodney had gone to school with, Brother Howard Cox, was the pastor at Middle Ground then, and he married us. And that was special.
Did you have any girlfriends in the wedding?
Oh, yeah, my sister and his sister, yes. And Miss Harville made all the tenders, dresses, and even made little hats for 'em. It was pretty.
Where'd you get your wedding dress?
At Megavit.
I had Mankovitz on the second floor or the third floor.
It was on was the ladies' department on the second floor?
Yes.
It was. It was there. And Miss Cameron, you were.
Of course, I remember Miss Cannon.
She was so excited trying to get me dressed.
I bet so.